I love printing. I love printing. I love it. I love printing.
Hey, everybody. Want to welcome you back to another edition of Printer to Printer with me, Warren Werbitt, your faithful host. Today, I am really lucky to have with me Tim Peppiatt of Peppiatt and Williams. Thank you, Tim.
Nice to be here.
Today, we're going to talk about procurement and a little bit about the mess that we, the print industry, are in regarding print management companies. And I thought that Tim would be the perfect person to speak with because of his experience. Tim, let me give you a few seconds here or minutes, whatever you need. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll pick up from there.
Well, after 23 years, 30 years in print and print management, I've left the rat race and a bit like yourself, Warren, and I'm now consulting with major brands and clients. Recently, I spent 8 months with GSK as their interim head of procurement. But prior to that, I worked in graphic reproduction. I've actually made my living printing stuff. My father was 40 years in newspaper print, but I suppose the large portion of that, I spent 23 years as a print manager with a company called Peppiatt, and we expanded into other digital services and put groups of procurement people or print managers on site with major clients.
We started talking a little while ago because I brought up print procurement management and the companies who I won't mention their names to give them any commercial time, but we know who they are. Got to have a little humor somewhere. Lately I've been on this rant of really not liking those companies for the simple fact that they have taken the margin out of our business. They've taken our relationships away from the end customers, which is what we know and how we operate. And then after one of our conversations, you got me thinking, and this is what I'm thinking. Where did we, the print industry, go wrong that we allowed this to happen? Because it's not possible that it just came out of nowhere. Maybe it wasn't the printer's fault, but these print management companies didn't come out of nowhere. Somebody somewhere thought that they were being disserviced in some way or something to that effect.
I think the good news, there's good news and bad news. The good news is I don't think it is the printer's fault in any way.
In any way?
Only to capitulate on price and be corralled into poor practices procurement-wise, and that comes from bravery. But you react as any supplier to the market in front of you, and if the market changes, you have to react to it. You know, if you go back to when I started Peppiatt in 95, it was a very simple methodology. We'd already seen the decoupling of media because ad agencies, and I'm talking about the UK now predominantly, ad agencies had made it a science. In fact, Saatchi drove the idea with a guy called John Perris of aggregating all of their spend in media placement, so buying space. So it was, for me, it was a kind of natural extension. We already had brokers. You have them in the US. We've had them here for years. In fact, you know, Centurion became Communisys. But for me, it was about professionalizing the buying of print, because up until that point, and it certainly happened in the US as well, you had ad agencies dominating the buying of print.
Well, sorry, if I could just interject, if I go back and I remember, well, thank you. It is my show. No, I'm just kidding. God, again, you need the humor. And by the way, it's only on my show that I get to say and do what I want. Everywhere else in my life, I have no say. So,
well, just, I have no say anywhere. We have two rabbits, and I come a poor third behind them in our household. So.
Yeah, I guess everywhere around the world, we're all in the same boat, eh? And but anyways, well, that's a conversation for another show. But I remember way back when, and even then I didn't think it was right, but I remember the agencies taking, some of them 30, 40% markup on print, which I thought at the time was dangerous for us. I always believed that you take a percentage for something, that you be open with your client, because you are entitled to make some money for the time you're going to spend managing it or on press. But I think somewhere along the way, that was another problem. Somebody got caught stealing print margin, and it wasn't the printer.
So do you want to do both sides of this conversation, Warren?
Go ahead.
For humour. Exactly my point. You know, the profligacy with agency groups, and you know, what happened is they got caught by people like myself, the Williams Lees of the world, and so on and so forth. And so I set up as an alternative. I went to probably the most successful ad man, Martin Sorrell at WPP, and said, look, I believe that print will be traded in much, or production will be traded in much the same way as media. So you'll have a declared commission. You'll tell people what the savings are. And for a while, that was good. And being an ex-printer, my family are in print, I thought it would serve a good purpose. So it would help people level out their production times. You know, people who are less busy could provide services at a slightly better price than they would if they were absolutely busy. So it would sort out the demand process. Unfortunately, we got sucked into the procurement world. So my first company was Black & Decker. We saved them 70%. 70%. And I remember like it was yesterday getting a call from the guy saying, we've saved 70%. How much do you want me to pass on to the client? I said, all of it. This is about, you know, making sure people schedule their work properly, us making a reasonable return. We had a fixed percentage. And that worked really well for about 2 or 3 years.
So I've just a quick question. The expectation. So you go in and you save them this huge amount of money. Okay, forget the percentage, whatever it is, but it's huge. You were going to go into year 2 and 3, but immediately I'm thinking, okay, what does your client expect in year 2? Because can't shave off much more after 70. Or is the expectation still there?
It's absolutely still there. But what we didn't realise is people like Accenture would go in and go, or generalist procurement companies who don't really understand our business. We're going in and saying, we'll do this, but for the next 3 years, we want 25% of the savings. So once that was finished, they could invest in another initiative. Print managers were guilty of thinking that being absolutely professional and down the line would get points and favour from the client and longevity of program. But in effect, what happened is procurement people move around, they change categories, and it's, what have you done for me lately? So all of a sudden, all of the margin that we'd taken out from the network agencies, they then came after our margin, and that drove a lot of very bad behaviour. So, you know, 10 years in, people were having to hide margin. They don't declare the true cost of the product, and in fact now it's become not fit for purpose.
Oh, I remember doing work with with one of the procurement companies, and it's pretty funny because nothing I say is funny. It's actually sad. But one of the persons that they had working for them at the time really didn't have any print experience. So they had no idea how long a job really takes. They say yes to everything. The shit rolls down from the top, it comes to them. And the next thing you know, they're almost threatening you with the next job if you don't get out this job. But you could only do what you could do as fast as you can, because first of all, paper only comes in when it comes in. Machines run as fast as they run, right? Drawing is drawing and finishing is finishing. But the funnier thing was when one of these persons would make a mistake, right? The company never knew. because the job would get redone and the cost would be then put into other jobs to cover that person's ass.
Yeah.
Right? So again, we, the print industry, is getting clobbered because even when it's not our fault, we can't even have full transparency with the client because there's somebody in the middle blocking it. I think that there's so many things that we could help the end users do that we don't do because we have the middle person controlling it, but I don't think they're doing the best of the best for the client either at the end. I don't know.
Look, I think if you look at where we are now, it's skills and knowledge should still be valued. If you look at what it's become, you know, technology is a lot better than, and I don't mean printing technology, although that's improved. Technology in controlling cost for print, point of sale, whatever that might be, has improved dramatically. The constant in all of this has been the people actually buying it in the print management company. So I was told quite categorically by the Wrigley organisation, change anything you like, but don't change him. So if we accept that this person was developed key knowledge and had key brand knowledge, then really it's only technology and him. So why do you need to charge 25% of the print cost for that? I tell you why. They've expanded into other areas. The clients haven't been, the brand clients haven't been quite as honest as they might. You know,
Right.
You are pitching for £5 million worth of print. It gets resourced through that. And all of a sudden, these organizations are massive. So you've got account manager, account director, you know, global account director. All the things that we stripped out from the network agencies have come back in
the other way.
The other way. So you've now got a structure that needs feeding. You know, I know CEOs of print management businesses have never been near print in their life. You might say that's not necessary, but is it necessary to pay them 250 to 250,000 a year just as a manager?
Plus. Right. So is not, and maybe I'm out to lunch, but I still think that if you have a professional print buyer who understands what it is that they're supposed to do, I still believe that the 2-3 quote system with the right people is still your best way.
Yeah, I mean, you
always need to have a minimum of 2 suppliers, even for simple reason that no one should jeopardize their business with one supplier in the event of a tragedy or something happening, right?
I'm not sure how much more innovation in terms of speed, time, and efficiency that the print industry can get. You know, a different type of printing.
So I'll just touch on that because I remember saying a bunch of years ago, as the machines are going faster and faster, right? The jobs are getting smaller and smaller and less. So what do you need more and more? I mean, I had a press that was paid for. Did I care if it took an hour and a half or 2.5 hours to do? No, it's paid for because all this new technology, all this new equipment comes with a cost. So if you're going 30% faster, but you don't have 40% more work, you're coming out 20% behind.
Go back to talent for a second. So
yes.
You've got consultancies, generalist consultancies, you know, some of them are trying to be media companies as well, where I'll name names. I was in Germany and the McKinsey people were there. And I was sent by one of the main board members of Danone. And I started speaking to them and I realized they had absolutely zero knowledge of the category. Oh, we don't need that. Okay. Talking to somebody in the client who has a little bit more knowledge, but not enough. So when making a decision on what you should and shouldn't do, who's leading? Who knows whether it's folding box board or paper over board or direct to board?
That's a good question.
The buyer.
Hopefully, because there are a lot of buyers.
Hopefully. Now, I work probably for one, you know, I think we had this conversation the other day, Warren. If I was on the front nine of my career rather than the back nine of my career, I'd certainly be looking to spend a lot of time. I would have been looking to spend a lot of time with GSK. And I think they're probably some of the most professional and dedicated and nice people I've ever worked with. But there is no one in that organization, no one, who understands enough about print management to construct it properly.
Interesting.
And they're, as I say, utmost respect, but one of the, probably the best, if I'm being honest. And I'm still in touch with them today. You know, we've got to get away from this incremental, want more savings. A guy at Royal Bank said to me that every year we get 10%. I said, okay, bearing in mind that 50% is raw materials, can you tell me at what, no, new technology. I said, I'm stunned. You have no grip of the category whatsoever. And that is where the problem lies for printers, actually getting to have a conversation. The client doesn't want to have that conversation with a printer. It wants to have it with a manager.
Yeah, so I'm just looking now, not to be rude, for an email that I received yesterday from somebody, and in it was all of the increases that are now coming, right? So I would like to know on this topic, how do print management companies deal with this? Because I could tell you that I'm looking now at 7 different letters from paper merchants that covers most brands of paper, and everything is rising anywhere from 2 up to 7%, carbonless paper up to 14, coated stocks are up, corrugate's up 28%, shrink wrap is up 20% in the last month. These are just notices that I know of from talking to people. I'm talking to a shrink wrap supplier or someone in shrink wrap. I don't buy it. And he said, yeah, got an email from my supplier. Prices are up 24% tomorrow. No notice. I said, are you allowed to do that with your customer? He says, my customers are going to fight, but I don't have a choice. So when I look at all of this and over the course of the years and things are going up, I don't remember print management companies accepting any increases along the way.
I think that's, you know, poacher term gamekeeper is always difficult, isn't it? But certainly when we prepared contracts, even though we would get pressure not to pass it on, we would index link a baseline price to changes in raw materials, ink, paper.
You have to.
However, you know, new procurement person comes to, he's been buying milk and he's now buying print.
And he threatens you with the business.
You know, we need you to deliver us another 3% because that's in my category plan. I said, what about cost avoidance? You know, some of them weren't that sophisticated. Now you have them. We'll absorb the paper price. Oh, well done. But someone has to pay for that. As a manager, we don't produce it. We have to pass that down the line, or we had to pass that down the line. It's, as you said, the fear factor.
How do we get ahead? How do we get ahead? Is there a way for print management companies to get ahead? Is there a way for us to work together? Or do we as an industry have to band together and then go after the end customers and all at once go on strike and stop delivering to print management companies? Because we got to do it as a group.
My print product costs $100 from us, or $110 from a print management company. That's unworkable. Someone will break rank. Yeah.
I know, of course. I'm just trying to think, how do we get the message out there that it's okay for the gas companies to collude and have the same price per liter on every corner, but they don't talk or get together or have meetings in restaurants, but somehow it's always the same price. Yet in our industry, we're like hoard around. I don't know how to better say it.
You know, in the UK, when the statistics that I bandied around was, you know, years ago, there were 18,500 printers and only enough work for 14,000 compared to Print Week. There are just too many suppliers. You know, in oil, you've got 5 or 6 global suppliers, and a bit like paper, so many paper suppliers, and then different merchants who call it's Warren White or Tim Peppiatt White 100 grand, same paper.
Right.
You know, I think print industry has to realise a few things as well. So broke off the creative work, fine. Broke off buying the space, fine. Don't think of it as print, think of it as production. Now, we have, and you had this conversation with me the other week, 40 or 50 different channels. When a client talks about an ecosystem, it talks about the creativity, it talks about the media, and then the execution, print, banners, digital, you know, radio, TV. If all you're producing is one commodity that 45 others can produce, so your value is that small part in the chain, you're going to get marginalized.
Correct.
I can't understand, and we both briefly spoke about it, I can't understand why some of the bigger players, and I think LSE did it, they Continuum spun out of something, why the bigger players haven't put together a solutions business. Well, I always say it took me about 6 years coming out of graphic reproduction and print to learn the client language. I'm not sure, and I'm not saying they're not bright people, you know, there are printers that are doing it well, that the print industry necessarily talks procurement and print language. Sorry, procurement language, supply language to the end user, the end client.
And I guess it's a little surprising because we do have a couple billionaire mammoth players that have the financial and human resources, where I'm going to venture out and say that they're probably doing procurement on their end when they're buying for their own corporation or conglomerate or whatever we want to call them. So, you know, if you take the R.R. Donnellys and the Transcons and I don't know who's of the billionaire space in your neck of the woods, but those companies did a pretty good job of beating up our own industry as they grew to begin with in their own right? And they're not there to help us now.
Well, we'll look at, you know, it's not as if we haven't got reference point. So for media, we've got Media Independent, and for print, we have Williams Lee, the largest financial printer in the country and in Europe, and all of a sudden decided not to have presses anymore. I can't, you know, Xerox went into print management, you know, just don't understand the print, you know, it's not worked, they got thrown out of GSK.
Well, I'll tell you, even with Xerox, which was kind of crazy, and it's okay if you're in it, but you know, Xerox was in it. I was a customer. I had to beg and fight for work from some of their centers that were buying from non-Xerox customers on non-Xerox equipment, and then I had to give a rebate back on the overall sale. But the worst part is I had to pay Xerox in 30, 60 days for my equipment. Xerox Procurement was paying me in 120 plus. So even amongst ourselves, we don't even play the game the same, right?
Yeah, you know, everyone's fighting for, so back to the agency, the production department bought it and put a margin on it and sold it to the account handling department and put a margin on it and sold it to the client. You know, you've got to strip it back and say, right, we are going to be in production management, and it's print, and it's a digital company. Now, Peppiatt ran out of money. I don't think the strategy was bad. You know, if you look at one of those digital businesses, it's gone from 5 million to 10 million. Coding websites in Drupal and other such languages, Magento. So that's done well. the reason that we were into places like Christie's is because we did all of the artwork, the retouching, the print buying. It was a valuable service. Just adding, you know, and actually some of the marketing people didn't understand that, let alone going back down the chain further. So have they got the skills? Yeah, I mean, you've got some of the biggest suppliers in the world. Are they interested? I don't know. You've got on packaging, you've got, you know, Repro, got SGS and Schwalk and people like that, and they've tried to branch out. On the print side, you've got some very powerful and wealthy people. But why have they made such a mess of it? I think it's because they don't speak the language.